Open Book with Susan Baier, the show where we learn about our local leaders and get to know the people behind the titles. I'm your host, Susan Baier, the Executive Director of the Allen County Public Library. We're coming to you from Studio B in Access Fort Wayne at our main library in beautiful downtown Fort Wayne. I'm so excited to chat with our guest today, learn more about her and her service to the community. Please help me welcome the President and CEO of the Fort Wayne Urban League, Aisha Arrington.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to have you here. So some people may not know that we, as in our organization, your organization, we're neighbors. Yes. We share a campus, our Pontiac branch and your office.
Yes. It's a whole campus there. We're lucky to have the library just right next there, right next to us, and have been building on relationships there to hopefully grow programming and just community relations right there in the 46803 zip code.
Absolutely. We're great partners. So tell me more about the mission of the Fort Wayne Urban League.
The mission of the Fort Wayne Urban League really is just about getting everyone to equal. The National Urban League releases a State of Black America's report every year, and the 2023 report indicated that the equality index has only increased by 2.7% in the last 20 years. And if we continue at that same rate, it will take 300 years for Black people to become equal to white people in this country. So when we're talking about that equality index and we're talking about getting everyone to equal, it's about everything. It's about wages on a job. It's about home buying power. It's about social justice issues that affect people of color. So many things that the Urban League is working on to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to live the American dream.
What is the origin story of the Fort Wayne Urban League? How did it come to be?
Sure. Urban League here in Fort Wayne has been around for 105 years, believe it or not. Wow. We popped up around 1920 along with many other urban leagues, all as a response to the Great Migration. We had so many African American people fleeing the South, primarily because of Jim Crow and lynching, coming to northern states looking for jobs, looking for housing, really looking for opportunity. And so urban leagues popped up to provide programs and services to address that need. I should say that Fort Wayne Urban League is one of 92 other affiliates across the country, all under the umbrella of the National Urban League.
So in 2024, the Fort Wayne Urban League had an initiative called the Race Card Project, which we were a participant in.
Yes.
Happy to do so. Can you tell us about that?
We were so excited to have the opportunity to partner with journalist Michelle Norris, who created the Race Card Project in 2010. She thought that maybe people just didn't even want to talk about race. And so she tried just printing 200 postcards, leaving them around town, asking people to mail it back into her and give her a 6-word essay about how they felt about race or identity. And what she found out is postcards actually started coming back in. And then what she really learned is people really did want to have an opportunity to talk about race and identity. So Michelle Norris came out with a new book last year, Our Hidden Conversations, and it's kind of like the Bible of this whole project over, the last decade. So many stories of people giving their race or identity story in 6 words, and so Fort Wayne Urban League reached out, and she allowed the partnership so that we could have race cards available to community members here to submit their 6-word essays. And believe it or not, it can be hard coming up with a race or identity story in just 6 words. But Fort Wayne Urban League collected probably about 400 cards. We were only able to use about 300 of them because 100 were just laced with violence and we couldn't have them a part of the project. But the whole intention was really just to open up the conversation so that people had the opportunity to share what race or identity meant to them in their own personal lives.
Was there anything about the response from the Fort Wayne community to this project that surprised you?
I don't want to say surprise, but it definitely was a learning opportunity. When we give people an opportunity to really share their own feelings about what race or identity means to them, you kind of open it up to real, honest, vulnerable conversations. And so, there were race cards that were submitted that spoke to maybe a family history of racism. It spoke to people that are multiracial, that sometimes have a hard time figuring out where they actually fit into the world. Some of the race cards that came in spoke to a lot of confusion about race and culture. And so it was just a lot of learning opportunity, I think, for everyone. At the end of the project, we did have an open house where we posted some of the physical cards and allowed community members to come in. But we also have all the digital responses online on our website. And so that's open to the public to look. And then we're excited that we are kicking off with Race Card Project 2.0 for 2025. We've partnered with WBOI, and they have interviewed 5 community members that are sharing their race or identity story in 6 words. And so we're going to create an opportunity to continue the conversation this year.
I'm so glad the community is, because it's a conversation that needs to be continued.
Yes.
So you joined Fort Wayne Urban League in July of 2022, I believe.
Yes.
As CEO. And you came at a time where there was some rebuilding to do in the organization. You had your work cut out for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How did you keep the faith?
Well, first of all, I don't know why I chose to start my first day July 5th. But they had asked me when I was ready to start, and for whatever reason, I said, I'll start July 5th, the day after the holiday. So I remember that day so well, because we had had a family barbecue, and my kitchen was a mess, and the backyard was a mess, and here I am trying to get ready for my first day at the Urban League.
Yeah, get in the right headspace. And
yes.
Yeah.
But I came on board, and yes, there were some challenges. I think anyone in leadership understands that it's not always easy, but what gets you through is having a support system. I was lucky to have other community leaders that I could lean on for advice and guidance, and more importantly, I understood that I was accepting a role that had so much rich tradition and history, and it was really an honor to take the position as president and CEO at the Fort Wayne Urban League. And so I'm glad I'm still here 2.5 years later. And as you know, Susan, non-for-profit work isn't for the weary. And so if nothing else, those first couple of years only made me stronger, only gave me more insight in how we can move the Fort Wayne Urban League forward.
How is the Fort Wayne Urban League tied to the national organization?
Well, we're an affiliate. So there's 92 affiliates across the country, and we're one of them. So our mission, our programs, all of that aligns with the National Urban League in so many ways. National Urban League guides us with instruction and some best practices of running the organization and the movement here locally. There's training that's provided from the National Urban League. And then, you've got 92 other affiliates that you can lean on for support and guidance. A lot of us are, having some of the same challenges. And so it's nice to be under one big umbrella, really a whole family working in the movement together.
So one of my big regrets from 2024 is that I had a conflict and I couldn't come to your sneaker ball because I was so excited when I read about it. I had an outfit planned out and I had a library conflict, so I couldn't go. But I'd love to hear about it, and I believe there are plans for 2025, so
yes,
maybe I can go this year.
Yes, September 7th, the first Saturday in September, we will have the Sneaker Ball again at Parkview Mural Center. Sneaker Ball was just a way for us to bring back the Urban League's gala. So Urban League has been having a gala for, over 50 years, and I think it was time just for us to revamp what that gala looked like. bike. And so we had a sneaker ball. And I just have to say, it was one of the funnest events I've ever gone to in my life. I didn't get to eat that night because I was running around. But it was just a way to have fun, raise money about the mission, and then share all the good things that Fort Wayne Urban League has been doing in the community. So I do hope to see you this year.
Oh, I have it on my calendar already, and I love a formal event where your feet don't have to hurt. It's like
Yes,
the best of everything.
absolutely. Yes.
So you said that nonprofit work is not for the weary, and you're absolutely right. You have a job that can be at sometimes emotionally and mentally taxing. So what does self-care look like to you? How do you prioritize your own well-being when you're managing all of this?
Well, it's a really good question. And to be fair, I don't do really well at it. It's something that I definitely need to work on, something that I could do better at. But you know, you're pulled in so many different directions, and you do have the weight of the organization that you're carrying on your shoulders at all times. And I have a teenager that's 16, and she had asked me, "Mom, do you ever take a break? Are you always working?" And it just was a reminder that sometimes you do have to slow down. Sometimes you do have to just turn off the phone. She cheers for her school. And so for games, I intentionally, have my phone cut off unless I'm videoing her and making sure that my eyes are on her and not on my phone or my laptop. But it's just being really intentional of just trying to cut out some time, some space where you're not feeling like you're carrying that load. Or that it's so heavy all of the time. I would say I have been working on just sleep and getting on a sleep pattern, walking, having some type of physical activity, and maybe more important than anything, having a couple of people that I can go to for safe conversations where I can unload everything that I'm carrying and everything that I'm thinking about. And those conversations, because they're the right people, always leaves me more energized and more confident about the work that I'm doing and that I'm going to do.
I call that having a cabinet. I feel that everybody needs to have their personal cabinet of that trusted inner circle that you can be authentically you and share those concerns and troubles and innermost feelings and get that support.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Aisha, what drew you to nonprofit work?
I have an untraditional work history, but I had gone through JobWorks, a program where if you were on welfare, they would help ease you off of welfare and into the workforce. And up until joining that JobWorks program, I had worked a lot of retail and different things like that, but I needed a work schedule that was just during the day in order to coordinate my daughter's childcare and being on the bus because I didn't have a car. And so I went through the JobWorks program, and they helped me find my first nonprofit job, and it was with Aging and In-Home Services. They hired me to help cover the front desk, and it was traditional work hours, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. My daughter's childcare just down the street with Lutheran Social Services, so the bus was easy, getting to and from her was easy, and it was my first opportunity to work at a nonprofit. I stayed with Aging and In-Home for about 7.5 years before I left to pursue my education full time. But I left there right into another non-for-profit, Healthier Moms and Babies, and then ended up running a non-for-profit for about 14 years, which is the LTC Ombudsman Program. So it's really like I started my 9-to-5 big girl job at a non-for-profit, and I've never left since.
What was your very first job, and are there lessons you learned there that continue with you in your current role now?
Sure. My very first job was Wendy's downtown, walking to and from that job. And just the hustle and bustle of making those burgers and getting them flipped just right. And all of that just taught me, sometimes you just have to be in the fire, literally, to get the job done. And I've certainly carried that with me throughout my career. There's something about being shoulder to shoulder with someone and there being extreme pressure to get a job done that, you never really forget that. It kind of shapes who you are as a person. And I think retail and fast food are some of the hardest jobs there are out
Absolutely.
there. We don't give those folks enough credit. But I think that I've always kept with me, just getting the job done, working together as a team, being in a pressure cooker situation and knowing that there's light at the end of the tunnel. For Wendy's, it was just getting through that fast food rush hour. We knew if we made it through there, it would calm down just a little. And I think that's true in life and work.
I've heard you talk before very movingly about your lived experience as a young mother navigating school, navigating work, depending on public transportation, lots of challenges.
Yes, absolutely.
What advice or encouragement would you give to someone who is in a similar situation now?
I would just say believe in yourself and take each day as it comes. But there's nothing wrong with writing your goals down. There's nothing wrong with researching what other folks have done to get to where they're at. I've always been a student of people. And I love autobiographies. I love documentaries because I like hearing real, true stories. Viola Davis has a new book out, and
It's
she
so
talked.
good.
Oh, it's so good!
Yeah.
I could read it again. I think I've read it twice already.
Finding Me.
Finding Me by Viola Davis. And she said once she was meeting with her counselor, and the counselor had told her, you wouldn't even know how to cross the street if it wasn't covered in SHIT.
Yep.
And that hit me because sometimes when you have struggled for so long and been through so much, struggle, hardship, pain. And sometimes you don't know how to navigate if you don't have any of that. And so when I read that in that book, I said, my goodness, that's exactly it. That's it right there. I want a life where I can walk across the street when there isn't that on the ground, but I also want to open up opportunities for people so that they have a better street to cross. So I would just tell people, hang on in there. We all have a story. Sometimes you look at someone and they've got it all put together, but you don't know how that person got there. We all have a story. We all have a background and challenges that we have had to overcome. And I'm just one of a million people with such a story. So I would just say, hang on and keep going.
In your role, you interact with many young people. What advice would you give to young people in our community who want to make a difference, but are not sure where to start and/or they don't feel that they have a voice?
Yeah, well, I think it's really up to us as a community to create opportunities for our youth. I think when they are given opportunities, then they do step up and they do serve. Fort Wayne Urban League, we just created a new initiative, Mothers for the Movement, Every Child Home Alive. And it's an initiative where we develop protocols to educate our youth about what to do when they're pulled over by the police. And we had some really candid conversations with young people that gave it to us, in a real way, a way that we could understand their perspective, and really led the way of how we thought about introducing these protocols to the community. So I would say, let's make sure we're giving young people an opportunity. And then I would tell young people to always remember that their voice is needed in a room, that they belong in the room, and that their perspective matters. And sharing that with others can only make the community better.
And sometimes if you're not invited to the table, pull up a chair.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. Bring that folding chair. I believe in that. Yes, too.
So I believe you are a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority,
Yes.
which is part of the Divine Nine,
Yes.
historically black sororities and fraternities.
Yes.
Can you tell me what your sorority means to you and what service means to you? Because I know it's a service sorority.
Yes, it is a service sorority, and I had the pleasure of crossing in April.
Fairly recently.
Yes, so very recently. I am a new soror to all my Delta sorors here in the community. It's an honor to be a part of this sorority that has such a rich history of service. And that really attracted me to the sorority. It's just all the community service and all the legacy legacy it has of serving communities. You might find it interesting that Delta Sigma Theta was the first to have books, that were being delivered to people in areas that didn't have access to libraries.
I did not know that.
Yes, they were pushing books around in communities just to get a book in front of someone that may not have had the opportunity to actually get their hands on a book. I think that's so meaningful. But, they set the standard of what community relationships mean, what community service means. And there's just so much that I'm looking forward to in serving with the sorority to keep that tradition going.
Well, congratulations on crossing over.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
phenomenal.
you. Thank you.
So you mentioned books. Since we are filming in a library, I would be remiss if we did not talk a bit about libraries and books.
Yes.
Do you have any early library memories?
Well, Downtown Library was a library that I would walk to quite often. I didn't have a library card. Back then, I had moved from one foster home to another and ended up leaving books that then created fines for me. And I didn't have the money to pay the fines off. And so I didn't want to stop coming to the library. So I would just sit here for hours and read at this library down here. What I love about libraries is no matter what circumstance you're in, you can come and learn about people and things in the world that maybe you would never, have heard about. And it was reading those books and spending time down here that encouraged me and inspired me, to do the work that I'm doing today.
So you mentioned Finding Me, which my book club read a few months ago, which is phenomenal. Are there other books, either from your childhood or currently, that have provided that kind of inspiration to you?
Oh, sure. Well, one of the first ones I read was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Dr. Maya Angelou. And that was here at this library, seeing that and then running across it again in a group home that I was at. But gosh, that book is a hard one to beat, but it's on one of my favorite book lists. I think, again, because she was able to speak so vulnerable about her life and who she was, I connected in so many ways with her hardships. And then to see her, as a doctor and a book writer, always encouraged me. The other one was The Diary of Anne Frank. That was another one that I read as a young child, still haunted sometimes by thinking of Anne and that attic and the life that they lived and, the quietness that they had to keep during the day. And it's something that probably shaped me for many years in thinking of her story. But those would probably be my top two.
So our final segment on Open Book is called The Tail End with Toonces. So I'll explain.
Okay.
So Toonces is my very opinionated, big personality, big gray cat. And he couldn't come to the studio today.
Okay.
But he did have a question he wanted me to ask you.
Okay, I'll try.
Yes. So I have noticed that in a lot of your correspondence, you sign off with something that I find very powerful, yours in the movement.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask, and Toonces wanted to ask, if we fast forward 25 years, what do you hope the movement looks like? Where do you hope it takes us?
I hope that the movement gets everyone to equal, that we break through that 300-year barrier that National Urban League has told us that we're facing, that we have a community where everyone feels welcome, everyone has every opportunity that they need to reach their goals, and that we're at peace with one another.
That sounds pretty amazing. Well, Aisha, I'm so glad we're neighbors.
Yes.
And we're amazing partners, our organizations, and I always look forward to working with you and seeing what's next. And I hope anybody watching today gets some recommendations for their next great reads, because we talked about some really amazing books.
Yes, absolutely. And as always, it's a pleasure to sit here and talk with you. Glad we are neighbors, and I look forward to all the work that the library is doing and the expansions. It will only enhance everyone's life here in the Fort Wayne community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Open Book with Susan Baier. Until next time, keep turning those pages.